Currently in 2023, there are countless AAA titles out there for you to explore. The technical possibilities of current hardware is forever increasing in scope and capability, but if you're like me, you might be experiencing a fatigue of sorts due to the repetitive nature of these mainstream titles. As well made and as entertaining as they are, there's only so many people that I can shoot or so many sandboxes that I can roam around in. For me, this is where indie games shine. Without the specific sale targets of games like God of War or the mainstream appeal of Call of Duty, indie developers have far more freedom to create what they want without the interference of a publisher or studio exec. This allows them to work on projects where they can make decisions that will ultimately better serve the playing experience more than the trailer tagline. And you tend to find that this often manifests itself in the form of difficulty. I've recently been playing through Crypt of the Necrodancer, which demonstrates this ideology brilliantly, but another title that I've slowly been working through is 2010's Super Meat Boy. It's a game that I've heard a lot about over the years, but never actually checked it out until a few days back, where I immediately fell in love with how it seemingly perfected the art of encouraging perseverance. So with that in mind, let's sit back, relax, and take a look at Super Meat Boy. So the game is a 2D side-scrolling platformer consisting of a bunch of levels where you have to control Meat Boy to get to his consistently kidnapped girlfriend, Bandage Girl. Once you reach the end of a stage, the game's villain, Dr. Fetus, snatches her away and takes her to the next one. It's a fairly simple run-of-the-mill plotline, but the gameplay is where the thing truly shines. Think Super Mario Bros., but aside from just pitfalls and Goombas, you have spinning saw blades, boiling lava, laser turrets, crushing pistons, and swarms of biting head thingies. The game is pretty challenging for a variety of reasons, including the fact that pretty much everything in the world can kill you. If you come into contact with something that isn't a floor, wall, or a key, chances are you're going to die. On top of that, it's a one-hit kill scenario. No health bar, no amount of hits you can take, just one touch, and you're done. Now, it's not actually all that difficult to make a hard game, but it is difficult to create something that's endlessly engaging and replayable, which is exactly what Super Meat Boy is. The levels that you have to make your way through are typically very short and restrict their challenges to a small section of the stage. It never comes across as mean-spirited or as if it's trying to beat you down. Instead, each level poses an entirely new obstacle to overcome, and the game seems to want you to progress through it. A combination of intricately designed stages and a tight control scheme make for a satisfying gameplay loop where the difficulty is tied to the levels, not Meat Boy's movement. After all, you usually find in platforming games that you inevitably unlock more abilities or upgrades for pre-existing moves, but here your control scheme remains exactly the same in level 1 as it is during the final stage. Other than simply running, Meat Boy can sprint, jump and wall slide. That's about it. Some would say that this limitation makes for an unsatisfying progression system, but I couldn't disagree more. I always wanted to get further into the game, not to unlock a new move, but rather to simply see what the next challenge the game had in store was. So the main contributing factor for why I was so eager to keep playing through hundreds of deaths is the fast-paced nature of the platforming and the almost instantaneous respawning. You don't get a game over message or even a loading screen. You die and you're back at the start, just like that. Super Meat Boy encourages you to be reckless and de-incentivizes playing slowly and carefully. It doesn't want you to slowly assess the level and then take a calculated approach. It wants you to throw caution to the wind and jump straight into the fray. It wants you to go and learn on the way. Yes, you will almost certainly die pretty much instantly, but that is kind of the point. The game uses death as a mechanic instead of a punishment. Every time you die, you'll die for a different reason. You're going to learn that, okay, that thing there will kill me if I touch it, or this jump requires me to quickly alter my direction in mid-air. It will always be your fault when you die, but you're always learning, so you'll likely never make the same mistake again. With the super fast respawn time, it never feels discouraging to be thrown back to the start, because before you have the chance to get annoyed about what just happened, you're already on your next attempt. Also, you're not really capable of accidentally brute forcing your way through a level because of the way that they're designed. The challenge doesn't lie in trying to get Meat Boy to do what you want, but in the actual level structure itself. You have to fully come to terms with and understand what that specific stage is trying to teach you before you can move on to the next one, because by the end, you'll have to use everything you've learnt so far. Since the control scheme is so simplistic and easy to come to terms with, you're looking for new ways to use those same abilities in different scenarios instead of waiting to unlock a new power or something. This is quite similar to Dark Souls' philosophy of game design, which I've also done a video on, by the way, that you can check out by clicking the card up in the top right. But despite both of these games' attempts to use death as a mechanic, I can't help but feel that they approach the lesson in fundamentally different ways. Dark Souls also plays by the mantra of difficult but fair and death is your fault, but what seems to put people off seeing that game through to the end is how death is still ultimately a punishment. When you die, there are consequences. You lose your souls, all enemies respawn, any consumables you used in that attempt are now gone, and you have to do it all over again, which can take a fair amount of time. In Super Meat Boy though, you don't have any form of currency to lose, you don't have any finite items or consumables to waste, and the level reset costs you 10 seconds instead of 10 minutes. They both have a similar goal in regard to making the player feel as if they've overcome something, but they go about achieving this in polar opposite ways. In Dark Souls, you often come across a new boss which has you thinking, I'm never going to be able to do this. But after an hour's worth of attempts, you slowly get better and better until you overcome the odds. Here, you never really feel as if you're stuck. From the very beginning, every level in here feels doable because of how little punishment there is. The fact that you can die and try again in the matter of a second is a big part of what makes it one of those one more go type of games. You know when you're supposed to have an early night so you think, oh, I'll have one more go, and then all of a sudden it's 4 in the morning? This is exactly that type of game. Now, because of the lack of any real upgrades or abilities, you'll naturally have to get better at controlling Meat Boy with the basic button layout. And after 10 hours of brutally challenging death-defying escapes, you'll go back to the first worlds and realise just how trivial they were. You can go back and blitz through all the previous levels to achieve an A+ rank and earn your mastery over them. You feel that sense of progression and improvement, which is what the game is really all about. You'll eventually get to the point where it stops being a challenge and actually becomes a sort of chill-out game that you play when you have 15 minutes to kill. And by the time you've done all of that stuff, you'll have even more content to go through. Once you achieve an A+ rank in a certain stage, you unlock the Dark World variant of that level, which is far more dangerous and difficult, with extra traps and more difficult platforming. Every few levels in each world contains warp zones that you can find, which unlock special stages designed to pay homage to different retro games. You can also collect the bandages, which act as tokens of sorts for you to unlock extra characters, which control slightly differently. You don't need them to finish the game, but they do provide a slight bit of variety in how you can approach the challenges that the game has in store. Between the regular levels, the Dark World variants, and the warp zones, you end up with over 300 courses to complete. And with all this in mind, it's pretty easy to see why Super Meat Boy became such a hit, and is still very enjoyable to this day. Hello everybody, thank you very much for watching this video. I know this video is a lot shorter than my usual projects, and to be honest, it was a bit of a nice break for me to get away from doing something that's like half hour, 45 minutes long, and just do something short so I could, you know, not have to wait like 2 months to put a video out, because the stuff I make does take a long time because I have to play through the game multiple times, write a script, the editing process, it takes a while, so every now and then I might dip in and do a shorter video like this just so I can get something out. Don't forget that you can go follow me down on Instagram, my handle's down below, and you can see what I'm up to, any teasers for upcoming videos, and be notified just in case you haven't gone on YouTube in a while. I tend to post there when I upload, and you can kind of see what I get up to otherwise. But that's about it really, so once again, thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you did enjoy, subscribe for more of this stuff, comment if you have something to say. I always have a good time reading those, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.